Bloodhound Gang made waves with their song about doing it like they do on the Discovery Channel. But it's been a long time since the Bad Touch hit the Billboard charts. What have the members of the band been up to since then? Bloodhound Gang was one of those bands that fit in perfectly with the edgy mentality of the early 2000s, even though they were the comic relief in a music scene dominated by angry, aggressive nu metal. When the Bad Touch became a hit, another wacky staple of the era, the Jackass franchise, had yet to make its proper debut, but the seeds were already being planted through the CKY video series, which featured Bloodhound Gang members Jimmy Pop and Evil Jared Hasselhoff doing stunts with the rest of the crew in the fourth installment.
I think he's had a good beating for the night. That's for Shippensburg. Get this guy home.
In addition to appearing in the CKY series, Pop collaborated with three of the crew's mainstays, Bam Margera, his brother Jess, and Brandon DiCamillo, on a Christmas song, released on Pop's Jimmy Franks Records and credited to the DiCamillo sisters. But Why Is It So Cold was released in 2003 and is perfectly on brand with its risque Bloodhound Gang-esque lyrics. Various band members have also appeared as themselves in the Viva La Bam Season 3 episode Rockstars, which features Bloodhound Gang's punk cover of the Association's 1966 hit Along Comes Mary. After Bloodhound Gang's album Hooray for Boobies became a hit with teenage boys across America, the band needed to follow it up with something particularly catchy and immature. They made their way back to record stores almost 6 years later when they released Hefty Fine in 2005. According to bassist Evil Jared Hasselhoff, the album got its name because the band kept incurring, well, hefty fines for their on-stage antics. But even that reputation for controversy at live shows couldn't propel Hefty Fine to lofty heights. The album reached number 24 on the Billboard 200, 10 spots lower than the peak position of Hooray for Boobies. Number 24 isn't bad at all for a rock album, but when it came to the reviews, Hefty Fine was a hefty flop. It has a measly score of 28 out of 100 on Metacritic, and plenty of outlets were quick to give a thumbs down to Bloodhound Gang's lyrical content and musical output. A review for Pop Matters reads, "As if the lyrics and the poop weren't painful enough, the band actually makes us listen to music that, for the most part, amounts to cheap Blink-182 ripoff. That is, if Blink-182 used more synthesizer and were, get this, less funny." Billboard, meanwhile, took aim at Jimmy Pop's penchant for injecting pop culture into his dirty rhymes, writing, "Hefty Fine is an album with all the palpable and pity-inducing effort of unpopular kids dying for attention from daddy." Billboard also pointed out that untis sounds way too musically similar to the Bad Touch for comfort. If that isn't a sign of a band running out of ideas, then maybe a song with lyrics that almost entirely consist of Ralph Wiggum's funniest lines from The Simpsons will change your mind.
Whee! I'm a pop sensation!
Much like Spinal Tap, Bloodhound Gang has gone through its fair share of drummers. Spanky G was on the sticks for One Fierce Beer Coaster and part of Hooray for Boobies, and the aptly named Willie the New Guy took over on Hefty Fine. In December 2005, though, it was announced on the official Bloodhound Gang website that Willie wouldn't be joining the band on their upcoming European tour because of his hockey fandom. A funny gag, but probably not the real reason. The statement read in part, "Still a full-fledged member of the band, he will be back in Pennsylvania enjoying over 40 games a week." On a slightly more serious note, the statement added that Willie would be replaced on tour by Adam Perry from the British rock band A. It isn't clear why or when exactly Willie left Bloodhound Gang, but Perry revealed some details about his involvement with the band on the Feeling Sound podcast in 2022. He shared that he joined Bloodhound Gang after Willie apparently quit in San Francisco and ended up staying with the band for the next decade under his stage name, The Yin. With a stage name like Evil Jared Hasselhoff, it's no surprise that the man born Jared Hennigan ended up being a big deal in Germany. It's not just Bloodhound Gang fans that live in Deutschland, though. Hasselhoff himself calls the country his home. He moved overseas in late 2006, explaining on his blog that he was doing so because of his opposition to then-President George W. Bush's politics. Although Hasselhoff's blog was rife with not-safe-for-work jokes and stories, his political angst was obvious in some of his posts. In his October 4, 2006 update, he stated, "In a move that I would recommend to any other American who's sick of dealing with the greed, corruption, and stupidity the world has come to associate with Mr. George W. Bush, I have decided to ankle the home of the brave in favor of my new fatherland, Germany. The musician also admitted that his finances weren't as good as some may have been expecting from a famous rocker, but by the start of November, he had returned to his blog to express his gratitude to the German people for warmly accepting him, also adding that he had finally found someone to help him learn their language. Hefty Fine wasn't doing Bloodhound Gang any favors in the US, but at least they had their European fan base to fall back on in the mid-2000s. In fact, they were already more popular in Europe than in America around the time Hooray for Boobies was released, as suggested by evil Jared Hasselhoff in a 2000 interview with Pause and Play. Aside from confirming Bloodhound Gang's rock star status in Scandinavia, the bassist also quipped, "We're almost as popular as David Hasselhoff in Germany." That was still the case after the release of Hefty Fine, as Bloodhound Gang played multiple shows there in late 2005 and early 2006 to promote the album. In 2007, the band made stopovers in several countries as they continued touring Europe. They were scheduled to play shows in Belgium, Denmark, Germany, Hungary, Ireland, Switzerland, and Ukraine. A news article from the Kyiv Post even noted that Foxtrot Uniform Charlie Kilo, a track off Hefty Fine, was still popular all across Europe. While all the adulation from European audiences helped keep Bloodhound Gang relevant on a worldwide level in the years immediately following Hefty Fine, there was one member of the band who was in the perfect position to take full advantage of his continued fame. As he continued adjusting to life in a new country, evil Jared Hasselhoff began to leverage his fame as Bloodhound Gang's bassist by appearing on German television. In June 2008, the musician was cast as himself in 2 episodes of the soap opera Verbotene Liebe, or Forbidden Love. Apart from trying his hand at acting, Hasselhoff made use of his hands in another way on German TV in 2012 as he took part in a celebrity boxing match versus former Olympic discus thrower Lars Riedel. Despite being 2 inches shorter and not sharing a background in athletics, the musician ended up victorious with a knockout in the 4th of 5 rounds. A number of years later, in 2023, Hasselhoff returned to TV to take on the harsh conditions of the North in the reality show Arctic Warrior. Even though his inclusion in the program was seen by some as a PR gimmick, Hasselhoff and his survivalist partner, Helke Kuhl, ended up winning the whole thing. He had such a good time that he almost couldn't remember what band he plays in.
I forgot. I'm with a B. Backstreet Boys or Baha Men or Bloodhound Gang or whatever it was.
As 2008 wrapped up with no new music from Bloodhound Gang except for one single released the year prior, the band underwent yet another lineup change. When guitarist Lupus Thunder, real name Matt Stigliano, departed the group. His exit was announced on Bloodhound Gang's official MySpace page, with no serious reason given for his decision. It read in part, "It's with a lot of regret that we have to inform you that Lupus Thunder will not be joining us on this tour, as he finally came to the conclusion that the rest of us are a bunch of Thunder has yet to comment publicly about why he quit, but he offered some insight into his relationship with his former bandmates in a 2005 interview with Ultimate Guitar. He admitted, "So there are always times I'm ready to kill them all, they're ready to kill me, and you're dealing with 5 guys from different backgrounds, with different attitudes towards life. As I'm a big complainer, I like to complain about everything because it makes me feel better. They don't hate it, you just learn to deal with everybody, so you know when you do fight, it goes away." It appears that Thunder has since left the rock and roll lifestyle behind, as he ended up becoming a realtor in the San Antonio area. He was replaced on guitar by Daniel P. Carter, who played alongside drummer Adam Perry in the rock band A. It can be said that there are 3 main reasons why bands release greatest hits compilations. 1, the band is still popular and wants to end their current era before moving on to the next. 2, their label wants to make a quick buck off their most popular and successful songs. 3, the band wants to tell fans they're finished without actually saying they're finished. When it came to Bloodhound Gang's 2010 greatest hits album, Show Us Your Hits, it was seemingly more of the 3rd reason than the first 2. At this point, the band had barely released anything since Hefty Fine in 2005, and there were no signs that they were back at work on another full album of new songs. Show Us Your Hits contained 1 new original song, Altogether Ookie, along with songs from the 4 previous Bloodhound Gang albums. Although it came with The Bad Touch, Fire, Water, Burn, and other memorable tracks, Show Us Your Hits failed to crack the Billboard 200. AllMusic also gave the album a so-so 3-star rating, noting, Anybody who needs more than one Bloodhound Gang single but less than full albums will find their needs satiated by this fat-free compilation. By 2013, Bloodhound Gang was still playing shows in Europe even though they hadn't released a real album in the 8 years since Hefty Fine. Unfortunately for the band, evil Jared Hasselhoff got way more than just a Hefty Fine for what he did during 2 shows in Ukraine. As reported by the BBC, the bassist appeared to relieve himself on the Ukrainian flag during a July 30th show in Kiev. He pulled off another flag-related stunt the next day in Odessa, stuffing the Russian flag into his underwear and asking the audience not to tattle to the Russian president.
Don't tell Putin!
Officials from both countries were far from amused by Hasselhoff's behavior, despite his public apology. Russia's then culture minister, Vladimir Medinsky, tweeted that Bloodhound Gang's performance at the Kubana Music Festival that weekend was off, declaring, "Bloodhound Gang packing suitcases. These idiots won't perform in Kubana." Meanwhile, Ukrainian security officials announced that Hasselhoff was banned from entering the country for 5 years after his act of public flag desecration. In addition to those sanctions, Bloodhound Gang also faced the wrath of Russian townspeople who threw eggs and tomatoes at their touring van on the Sunday after the Ukraine shows. The band was also violently attacked in an airport lounge by a group of Cossacks, one of whom allegedly tried to smother one band member with an American flag. As Bloodhound Gang entered its 9th year without a new album in 2014, guitarist Daniel P. Carter was keeping himself busy at home in England as part of the supergroup Krokodil. The band featured members of various UK-based heavy music acts, like Sixth bassist James Leach and Cry for Silence guitarist Alessandro Venturella, the latter of whom would go on to join Slipknot. It would appear that Krokodil's recorded output was confined to 2014, where they released 3 singles and a full-length album. Even though they weren't active for long, they made quite an impression with their one album, Nahash. Rolling Stone ranked it as the 19th best metal album of 2014, describing the release as the most arresting metal debut of the year. By the time of that article's publication, though, Venturella was already with Slipknot, and Carter's US-based band was finally making progress on the follow-up to their 2005 album. It took a decade, but Bloodhound Gang managed to follow up Hefty Fine with their 2015 album Hard Off. After years of anticipation by the band's remaining fans, their comeback ended up landing with a big wet thud. Hard Off made zero noise on the album charts, where it failed to crack even the lower rungs of the Billboard 200. Rumors of a new album started swirling around April 2011, when it was suggested that it would be released later that year. By 2014, there was still no new album, but Jimmy Pop responded to a fan on social media by hinting that the record would be coming soon. Between August 2014 and September 2015, Bloodhound Gang released 5 new singles, with the last one, Uncool As Me, featuring NSYNC's Joey Fatone as a guest performer. But alas, that full-length album of new music was still elusive as ever. On December 18, 2015, Hard Off finally saw the light of day, with the 5 singles joined by 6 other tracks. The reviews weren't particularly glowing. Punk News complained about Bloodhound Gang's increased focus on techno, while users on Album of the Year described the album as unfunny and weak in comparison to the rest of the discography. And with that, Bloodhound Gang seemingly went dark, as Hard Off is the band's last release as of 2023. Jimmy Pop is no stranger to collaborations and guest appearances on other artists' songs. Within the decade-long span between Bloodhound Gang albums from 2005 to 2015, he made notable appearances on 2 German tracks. In 2022, he was once again guesting on a European dance music act's release and making use of his talents as a singer, rapper, and writer of dirty lyrics. When Pop joined forces with the hard bass group Russian Village Boys and sang lead vocals on their 2022 single, Daddy WTF, fans were looking forward to hearing new music at last from the voice of Bloodhound Gang. Unfortunately for some listeners on the Bloodhound Gang subreddit, the song didn't do it for them. One user wrote, "Pop can do so much better. This is garbage compared to other Another fan stressed that Pop should be focusing his energy on his main band, posting, "I love how BHG can walk the line between clever and stupid pretty well. This is just
Now you just lost me.
No.
I don't know what you just said.
Aside from being known as a man with many bands, Daniel P. Carter has established himself in the UK as a radio host. The Bloodhound Gang guitarist hosts BBC Radio 1's Rock Show with Daniel P. Carter, where he's talked to some big names in heavy music. His interview subjects have included Metallica drummer Lars Ulrich, Tool frontman Maynard James Keenan, Ghost vocalist Tobias Forge, and Bring Me the Horizon singer Ollie Sykes. Carter is also a renowned visual artist who's created album art for hard rock and heavy metal acts such as him, Vision of Disorder, and My Chemical Romance guitarist Frank Iero. He even provided the album art for the one album he did with Krokodil. Over the years, Carter has proven himself to be a truly talented multimedia artist, even on bizarre Bloodhound Gang songs with names like Socially Awkward Penguin. We can't really blame you if you're one of the many fans who think Bloodhound Gang broke up sometime after the release of Hard Off, or maybe even before that. There has been much discussion and debate on Reddit regarding the band's status, as well as nostalgic posts that look back fondly on their raunchy tracks from back in the day. Their lack of activity since late 2015 makes it easy to claim that they've disbanded. But in July 2023, Jimmy Pop replied to a fan named Wayne on X by declaring otherwise. He wrote, "I don't know who decided we broke up, but our Wikipedia should say 1992 to now. Wayne, I've been making Bloodhound Gang demos every year the whole time. Some of the demos that won't work as Bloodhound Gang songs will come out as Jimmy Pop songs. Thanks for asking, Wayne." It's anybody's guess as to when fans will get to hear those new Bloodhound Gang songs in a more fully realized form, or when they will get to hear Pop's solo recordings. For what it's worth, the band's account on X is still active, and the fact that they've shared several fan posts showing Bloodhound Gang as a Spotify Wrapped top artist for 2023 is a sign that they've still got a dedicated following despite their lack of new material.